Game over, man. Game over.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
So serious.
I am Iron Man.
This is a tasty burger.
Welcome to the InSession Film Podcast.
Welcome to episode 649 for August 10th, 2025, and I'm JD Duran.
And I'm Brendan Cassidy.
Hey, thanks for joining us, everybody, for this week's show. And I also want to thank everybody that reached out to me last week for my birthday as I turned 40 years old.
Happy belated birthday once again. I think I said happy birthday to you at least 20 times over the past week.
I appreciate it. And again, I appreciate everyone that reached out. It was a really great weekend. I had a fun time with the kids, had a great date night with the wife.
Good for you, man.
It was wonderful. I got to play some hockey, which was a great time as well. Always love getting to play.
You have a great grin on your face every time you talk about playing hockey successfully.
Man, that's a lot of fun,
I love
man.
it. I love it.
I'm getting better and better. The skating is really coming along.
Good.
Feeling pretty good about it. Our team, we won today 8-2, so we are going to the playoffs.
That's a hell of a victory. Good job, man.
Yep, we did fantastic. I got an assist, like my 4th of the year.
Nice.
So I'm not an offensive defenseman by any stretch of the imagination, but
that's a good hand you got if you're getting assists in that regard.
Speaking of hockey, though, the first thing that I did once I turned 40 is that I have gone to the doctor, because that's what you do when you get old. You go to the doctors more often. Recently,
because every time you get a paper cut, you think you're dying.
Exactly. I went to see my doctor recently. I'm going to have more blood work coming soon.
Okay.
And then I also went to the dentist recently because I had to get 2 teeth taken out amongst some other work done.
Ugh.
So you really can't see it on the video. You'd have to look really closely. If I laugh, you probably will be able to see it a little bit, because I have 3 missing teeth here on the top right.
Okay.
And so there's this huge gap. So I really look like a hockey player now.
Oh gosh, you must have been so excited when you got those teeth pulled, because you're thinking like the more I can look like a hockey player, the more proud of myself I'll be.
I mean, I did contemplate just leaving it and be like, okay, this is going to be my hockey face now, and I'm going to look like a hockey player. It's not going to stay like that. You might be able to hear it in my speech a little bit, and you'll certainly be able to see it. Eventually, I'm going to get implants.
I was going to ask if that was going to be a permanent pull, or if you're just going to get an implant put in or not.
Yeah, I have to get 2 implants for those teeth because they serve multiple purposes.
Okay, so they're back far enough that you need, is that the case?
Far enough.
They're front loaded. Okay,
they're front loaded. Yeah, I have 3 missing teeth in my back that I'm like, screw it. My dentist wants to get them fixed, and I'm like, no, I don't care. As long as there's no health.
Of course they do. The more work they put in, the more they get paid for it.
Of course, yeah.
I've got a buddy that had a tooth pulled not too long ago, and he very outright said, "I don't care. Just take it out and keep my mouth healthy. I don't need it replaced." He didn't care
exactly.
about it. Yeah,
the 3 I have missing in the back don't really care. The 2 that I just got taken out, though, I will get those replaced, because those are going to be important long term. So a lot going on. You get older, you got lots of medical things you got to deal with.
I kind of want you to show the YouTube audience what it looks like. Like, pull your mouth to the side. Oh, I see it. Okay. Yeah. You kind of look like a vampire.
Yeah, huge gap there.
Were they 2 back to back? Like they were next to each other?
Yeah, they were right next to each other.
Oh, no wonder you need those implants put in. Okay.
Yeah. So those will need, and then because there's those 2, and then the one next to it has been gone for years now.
Gotcha.
So there's just 3 teeth that are just gone, just missing there.
That must feel strange. I can't relate to that. I've got no teeth missing.
Yeah. So there's, you got lots of fun things going on.
Well, now you can tell people you got in a hockey fight.
Yeah, that's mostly what I'm telling people.
Good.
It's all hockey related.
You're playing the game right. I love it.
Exactly. No, on a serious note, though, thanks to everyone that reached out, though. I did really, really appreciate that. I had a great 40th, And there will be more shenanigans, more celebrations as we get later on in the year. So,
Absolutely.
It's been a good time. This week's show is going to be pseudo a celebration and pseudo not. So we have a top 5 that we are going to dig into. And the top 5 is inspired by the new film Together, which technically came out last week for most people. Brendan and I both got it locally as well.
Right.
However, there were other priorities that came about last week, so we moved it to this week.
Yeah.
And so we're going to be talking about that film with Dave Franco and Allison Brie. That's going to be a review this week.
Yep.
And with that film all about Franco and Brie and their characters being together, if you will.
Yeah. They're married in real life
and
as
they're
well.
married
which is
in
really
real life.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're going to do our top 5 power couples in horror movies. That's going to be our top 5. I very much look forward to getting to that. However, before we get to that top 5, we do need to address the giant elephant in the room.
The giant weapon in the room.
And by elephant, I mean weapon. Because good Lord, the weapon discourse is out of control, has been really since the beginning. That film dropped last week, and Thursday people were losing their minds. Friday, it became insufferable. It was out for one day, and collectively, it was like, we have to get off the internet. What are we doing?
My eyes were going crossed. They really were. Just given the polarity of those directions, whether it be on the positive or negative end, I was seeing double by that point.
It was absolutely insane. So I do want to talk about it, especially because we've done this a couple of times in recent weeks and months as it relates to superhero movies and where the MCU is going, the discourse of superhero movies, how that has changed. We've talked about that genre at length.
Yeah.
Horror is interesting. Horror is a whole different animal altogether. And given the discourse, not just around weapons exclusively, but even over the last 10 years or so, there's been a volatile back and forth in terms of the discourse and where people sit on the genre. That was all of it seemed to be at play this last weekend with weapons. But let's start here. The movie came out. It got really great reviews. It opened at the box office with $42.5 million, which is pretty great. It won the box office.
Which I did not expect. I was actually predicting Freakier Friday to win the box office. I thought that was going to be a sleeper hit, but maybe not so much
Maybe
at
not.
all.
Maybe not the case at all.
Maybe you're right, given what we talked about last week, that we are finally in a new era.
Yeah. This certainly seems to be even more suggestive of that, right?
Yeah.
Which is why I wanted to see how things have played out, because I was 95% of the way there. There are still a few things I need to wait to see when we get to Avengers next year and Spider-Man, of course. But this is another one of those weekends that certainly suggests that we might be in a new era.
Yeah.
An original horror film coming out and dominating the box office. Like I said, 42.5. Freakier Friday only had $29 million.
I was going to say it was like half that, maybe a little bit less than half that.
It wasn't even close.
It was
close.
Huge disparity. And Weapons also garnered an A- cinema score, which means audiences seem to be going for it. So it might be one of those movies like Sinners that actually has some legs, and weren't both from Warner Brothers, which means Warner Brothers, as much as we like to criticize them, that sometimes they can do some good things, right?
Yep. Well, and I think there was a tweet going around saying that they've had 6 films in a row. They're the first studio to have 6 films in a row that opened at like 40 plus million or something like that. It was pretty crazy. They've had a fantastic year.
They have. Yeah.
So yeah, Weapons It starts at 42.5 million domestically. The international, and I don't know how the international rollout is slated.
Yeah.
Maybe there's a lot more to go. I think there's a lot more international theaters for that to play in still, but worldwide, as it states right now, they're at 70 million.
What was the budget on the film again? Do you have those numbers ahead of you?
It was. I don't have those numbers.
I'm trying to look it up here. According to, of all places, according to Wikipedia, the budget was 38 million.
38 million. So yeah, 70 million.
If that's true, this movie is going to make its money back.
Yeah, it will. Yeah.
Mid-budget movies.
38 million? 38
yeah, I
million?
think 38. Yeah, that's what I saw here, and I think that source was Box Office Mojo that it was pulling from. So that seems pretty legit if that's the case, because if so, then yeah, this movie's doing very well at an early start. And this is also a movie that went to IMAX as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, I don't know what the marketing budget is. I mean, you have to at least double that, maybe triple. I don't know. But, you know, and the thing is, the marketing for this film was incredibly clever as well. It was very good. I love when movie marketing that is as good as Weapons also gets rewarded. That's fantastic to see.
Yeah. Before we even got a trailer, we just got ring light footage. And that's all it was, which was really clever. Fantastic. I agree. Yeah.
I know. They were also sending some screenings potato peelers, which I also thought was fascinating too. So,
oh yeah, we didn't talk about that in our review, but the use of the potato peeler has certain damaging effects. Like I'm gonna be afraid of using that tool for quite a while. Yeah, fantastic. The marketing for Weapons was really, really great. So I'm glad that it's bearing fruit for the film. $70 million to start. That will probably not slow down, but we'll see how word of mouth spreads and what it does next week. But it's off to a really great start. So in terms of the film on its own terms, I love that a movie like that is getting success. It's very exciting to see. As it relates to the discourse, there were two camps. There were the people that didn't like the movie. Some reviews even claiming that this is a movie about nothing. It's a waste of time. And then there were the people that loved the movie. And then there were people that loved the movie calling out the reviews that were saying that it's about nothing. And then those people, of course, had to bark back because they had to justify why they felt the way they did. And it just spiraled out of control from there. Now, of course, there were a lot of people in the middle, so to speak, or at least trying to find the middle. Yeah, but they got drowned out from the noise.
Generally, it got drowned out a lot. Where I fall in all of this, and I talked about this at the beginning of our Weapons conversation, if people want to go and check out that review, I thought Brendan and I had a great conversation on Weapons.
Yeah, we talked about the really good things about the movie and why it is a good movie, and also why it doesn't always fully work.
Yes.
Both things can be true, people.
I think so. True. And I think that's exactly why I found the discourse to be so insufferable, because Weapons is a movie that should foster great conversation. And don't be discouraged by the discourse. There are some great reviews out there for Weapons, some great podcasts on Weapons.
Absolutely.
There is phenomenal content out there to be checked out for sure. However, I found the conversation mostly vacuous and insufferable, because to me, and the word that I used to describe it in our Weapons review was dismissive. And I saw this on both sides of the aisle, so to speak. People that were trying to defend their position that the film isn't perfect. Those on the other side that loved the film, belittling those that felt like the film didn't have much thematically speaking.
Mm-hmm.
And it just felt like generally, and again, I understand I'm speaking in broad terms here.
Right.
There are individuals that I respect and admire that do not fall under this camp at all. But
Right.
generally, there was a lot of people just being dismissive.
Yeah.
Just not willing to engage with an opinion that they disagree with. And that to me was the most heartbreaking, because there's a lot of conversation and a lot of accusations being lofted at either side about how, well, you're just not engaging with the film in the right ways. And yet the people that are lofting those accusations are also not willing to engage in conversation in the right ways, ironically.
Right. Yeah.
And I almost threw my phone out the window.
It's ironic for a movie like this that's called Weapons. The discourse has been weaponized to such a degree. It's ironic, but also kind of heartbreaking, because to your point, this is a movie that does foster some really interesting conversation. It's certainly not a movie about nothing, as we talked about during our review. One of the best things about the movie is that it actually does have a lot of things on its mind that are worth talking about. The difference is, does it do a successful job at honing in on those ideas to say something more than just the idea itself? And this is where being in the middle, not to say everyone needs to be in the middle. You can love a movie, you can hate a movie. I don't care about that. That's beside the point. But sometimes people just need to listen. That's as simple as it is.
Yeah.
It's funny. You and I we don't disagree all that often on movies on this show. But when we do, we often try to hear both perspectives, right? You and I don't dismiss each other.
Mm-hmm.
And I want that to be more of a representation of the film critic body. And I feel like it's just not there yet. And that's unfortunate. It's really unfortunate.
It is really unfortunate. And especially because I have seen it from other critics that I do deeply respect and admire. And this weekend isn't going to change that necessarily, but it is frustrating when you're hearing people talk about how elevated horror has created this certain sect of the audience, or even with critics, about how they respond to horror films these days. Even if I agree with some of the sentiment, the way that sentiment was portrayed is very dismissive of why people would like those movies to begin with.
I agree with you. I don't want to call out a certain individual who has tweeted something that I feel like kind of initiated this discourse in a way. There was a certain tweet that went viral that I feel like sort of acknowledged this thing, and it was worded in a way that felt very verbose, very antagonistic, that perhaps really like fed into this discourse and just pissed off the other side of this coin. And I don't necessarily disagree with the intent of, what that initial tweet may have suggested, but it does raise another conversation as to how to properly communicate on a social media platform and how that gets easily lost these days, right? And I think that is ultimately, and I'm not trying to call out this particular individual for being in the wrong, but it is fascinating to see how easy it is to twist the intent of what that person may have been trying to communicate.
Yeah, I'm not speaking to any one person specifically. Again, if anything, I'm speaking to everyone, to both sides of the aisle, because yes, there are some that are speaking to those that have responded to elevated horror, calling out people for liking those films, but you get it on the at the other end as well, and and people that feel as if they have to justify themselves for having a mixed reaction on the movie. And I think it's perfectly fair to have a mixed reaction on the movie. I certainly had a mixed reaction on the movie. I don't think the film is about nothing. I'm not going to go that far.
Yeah.
But I don't want to dismiss anyone's opinion. Whether you feel that the movie is about nothing. In fact, I may be most curious about those people because Brendan and I, we went quite thoroughly into the film and that the movie was absolutely trying to be about something.
Yeah.
I thought it was pretty blunt in that regard. So it being about nothing, I'm curious to hear more about why someone would how someone could come to that conclusion. Even if I don't think the film fully realizes its ideas, I think there's more than enough there to say that it is about something.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to be dismissive of those who feel that there's nothing there. And on the other end of that spectrum, people that just truly love this film, I want to hear from those people as well and how they explain the missing narrative and thematic and emotional gaps in that film. I'm curious to hear about that as well.
Yeah.
Because I have gaps. I felt gaps with the film in that regard.
Yeah. And I have seen a few critics who felt like they were perhaps targeted as quote unquote younger critics who thought the movie was about nothing given their respective reviews. And they came out and said that, and I agree with this perspective and how they worded it. Some of these individuals came out and said that just because we found the movie hollow is not the same thing as saying we thought it was about nothing. Those are very different things. And we sort of talked about that during our review, that sometimes when a movie is about so many ideas that don't feel fully realized, it makes it feel like maybe the movie as a whole has less on its mind because it hasn't fully realized those ideas, right? That's kind of a byproduct of that miscalculation. And I think that's a fair assessment as to how to defend yourselves there. Bringing this all back to elevated horror, I think, is another problem, and probably the biggest problem more than anything else, because it's once again pigeonholing that all horror that fits into this so-called category, elevated horror, all of these movies are either good or they're either bad. Like there's no nuance there once again. And I feel like that's the narrative that we're hearing here again. You and I have talked about many films that may or may not fall into that category, which we don't like to use here. We've liked some of them. We've disliked some of them. Just because they fall into that category doesn't automatically make them good or bad. And I feel like this narrative, once again, this discourse, once again, is starting to pigeonhole the whole movement of elevated horror as either a great thing or a bad thing. And again, it's missing nuance. It's missing content.
I agree. And when I first brought up my frustrations, even in this conversation, it was really those tweets that have stirred the most in me, I think, for those exact reasons. Yeah. Again, the sentiment itself, I can somewhat agree with. I don't fully agree with because, again, it's missing context and it's certainly missing nuance.
Yeah.
And also the way some of those were phrased and structured, it was dismissive of those that would like any of those movies.
As if to say,
I'm sorry,
just
some of those movies are really great.
It's as if to say, just because I like some of these movies, I'm not a credible source to say whether I think Weapons is good or bad. That's basically how it comes off then.
Yeah, I mean, and I can understand the idea that it might create certain expectations or how people respond to horror now might be rooted in this movement. Sure. I think there's a valuable conversation to be had there. But what I was seeing, the few tweets that I was seeing about that specifically, they weren't trying to argue any sort of nuance. It was just a flat, this is a huge problem. The people that respond to this or that have made this movement what it is, that's why we're in this mess to begin with. And it just seemed to miss the point completely, I think. Or again, at least it misses a lot of nuance that I think is valuable to this conversation. And it just felt like there was a lot of slinging of arrows back and forth, which is why I go back to it. To me, it had nothing to do with where people fell on this, because ultimately where I fall on weapons in regard to this polarity on social media is that I'm on both sides of it. I think the movie is really good. It's really fun. And I think it's fair to criticize the movie for not fully realizing its ideas. I think it's both of those things.
Both can be true.
I'm in both camps.
I'm with you.
And instead of engaging in good faith conversation, again, it's just a bunch of slinging arrows. And what does that usually, where else do you see that, Brendan?
On sports?
In sports. It's sports discourse. That's what all of this is turned into. It is sports discourse. We are treating art as sports. And that is ultimately the biggest problem, I think, with any of this. And award season is on the way very soon. And look, I can have fun with award season. I think there's going to be some great movies that we see.
It's August, man. September is when we start seeing the release of some awards movies. People are thinking about it. People are getting ready for it.
And award season is the most sports that we usually get each year.
It's ironic that this mentality is starting to, form for the year, because a movie called Weapons comes out and starts to weaponize that type of discourse, right? So here we are. Here we are once
Which
again.
I certainly don't think at all was the intent of the film.
I don't think it was either. I think it's just ironic that a movie called Weapons is weaponizing that awards-like discourse once again, especially given that there's a particular element in Weapons that we did talk about during our review that could potentially garner some Oscar recognition, we'll simply say, if the movie still has some staying power by the time we get to award season. And, when that happens, especially given this type of movie, there are a lot of people that will push back on that notion. When something gets very hyped up, they like to push back against something that they might feel like is overly hyped. So that's where that dismissive nature starts to rear its ugly head once again. And there is a lot of hype around Weapons right now. So for those who might not love the movie as much as the hype suggests, they're going to be harder on it. And unfortunately, that's just the way things always go. And it leaves less room for nuance. And I find that very frustrating.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously a lot of that sports mentality is born out of the culture of going virality, creating these short, clever snippets that
because that's what creates engagement,
value and engagement. So it's certainly some of that as well. And it's also created this space where people just become rigid.
Yeah.
And they stand their ground, and it just becomes this shouting match. And most of the arrow slinging that I see, maybe it's because I'm on sports Twitter just as much. That could be part of it. But I don't see any difference between the weapons discourse and Ohio State, Michigan discourse. It is the same thing, the exact same thing. But with sports discourse, there's an objectivity to it. There are winners and losers. And if your team loses, there's not much ground to stand on. You have to take those arrows and hope that your team wins the next time. But that is sports. That is not at all how we should be treating art. It's crazy that that's how we treat art.
I know.
And yet here it is. I'm making a definitive statement that sounds like fact. This is where I stand on elevated horror. I'm making a definitive stand. This is fact. If you think that weapons can't be criticized, then you're this. It blows my mind.
There's so much gatekeeping that happens when it comes to this type of discourse. People are so adamant to defend what they love that they become these gatekeepers and these defenders in a way that they can't accept any new perspectives or change. And the same thing happens with music. I've had many conversations with people who don't like the way that, let's say, one of their favorite artists decides to challenge themselves and change genre and do something completely different, because they're too pigeonholed to what they used to love. and they don't like that change. And I feel like in a similar way, that mentality is bleeding into film discourse. It's more or less the same thing. And when these people stand their ground in such a way that they're not willing to listen to the other side, what's frustrating about that too is because film criticism is all about listening to perspective. I feel like if you were to define film criticism, or you were to ask me what film criticism is, it's about perspective. It's about listening to perspective and learning how to explain how a different viewpoint can actually be taken from a certain piece of art and how they're viewing it in that way. That's the whole point of it. That's what film criticism is to me. And this discourse is a failure to acknowledge that. And I find that deeply frustrating.
It is very frustrating. I agree. And that has all but been lost. Like I just don't understand why we live in this space where everything has to be black and white.
Yeah.
Why does it have to be definitive?
Yeah.
Why does every quote unquote elevated horror film have to be the spawn of Satan?
Yeah.
There are some horror films that are good. There are some horror films that are bad. Like you got to get rid of the terms. I think it kind of starts there.
That's the problem. Yeah. We hate the term elevated horror, but that doesn't mean we hate the films that many people tend to categorize as elevated horror. There have been some great ones and there have been some really bad ones.
Get rid of the terms.
Yeah.
I think that certainly that's part of it as well. And I think people have to get to a place where you can hear an opinion you disagree with, acknowledge that you disagree with it without being dismissive, and then offering your own perspective. I feel like I'm talking to a third grader.
I feel like I'm talking to a wall.
This is basic human communication. Like we're on a podcast.
This is English class.
Talking about something that feels fundamental. Like, should I not be talking to my children this way? Not adults on social media?
I mean, like I said, I feel like I'm talking to a brick wall whenever this conversation comes up.
Our listeners are the best. I know they're here for the nuance and they're here for our perspectives.
Absolutely.
I'm not speaking to them. It blows my mind, some of the things I see. They're just completely and utterly dismissive in a sports mentality type of way. Yeah. And as it relates to art, that is something I will never in a million years understand.
I know.
Won't get it.
I know. I'm with you, man. So with you.
All right. Well, before we get to the top 5, I do want to acknowledge something else from this last week as well. Last week, we were talking about this idea of, are we moving into a new era of cinema? And perhaps with the weapons, not discourse, but the success of the film at the box office and with audiences getting that A- cinema score, maybe things are moving in a new direction. Last week, there was an announcement that Kristen Wiig and Jonah Hill are starring in a new comedy. It is called Cut Off, and it is going to theaters next July. So it's not going to be a Netflix, throw it away kind of comedy. It is going to go to theaters. And I thought that was incredible timing, given our conversation last week.
I think so, yeah. That definitely correlates to our conversation that we had during the Naked Gun review, that maybe we'll get more of these.
And where I have to eat a little crow here is that I was dubious about original comedies. I was like, okay, we're going to get more Spaceballs and
I'm eating
the
crow
legacy
as well.
sequels.
Or legacy sequels or reboots. That's what I thought we were going to get, which is what Hollywood tends to do, is learn the wrong lesson. But this is, whether or not the movie is good is beside the point. We just want to see original comedies go to theaters and to foster that type of movie-going experience of communal laughter, right? That's what makes comedy so great in the theater. And with the star power there with Kristen Wiig and Jonah Hill, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think Jonah Hill's directing.
He's going to direct. He is. Yeah, that's correct.
Isn't this his first directorial effort since mid-90s? Or did he do something in between that?
I want to say he did something in between, but I very much could be wrong.
Yeah, I'm going to have to look that up. But the man has already proven that he's I didn't love mid-90s, but it was an assured film from a director that actually had a vision, and there was some good technical merits to it. So we can at least assume that this movie is actually going to be well made to some degree, that it's going to feel like a movie, right? So that's exciting to see.
Yeah, it's very exciting.
Yeah, I'm all for that.
Yeah, I cannot wait to see what that is. Not that I'm necessarily waiting for the next Jonah Hill project or even the next Kristen Wiig project, but the idea that we are getting a studio comedy that's going to go to theaters and it's an original comedy.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm going to, at the very least, be rooting for it to succeed. So we kind of move back to that era of movies.
Yeah. So Jonah Hill has directed one narrative feature, mid-90s, and one documentary. Remember the documentary Stutz? Where he was engaging with his therapist, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
So that was technically still a Jonah Hill film. But mid-90s looks to be his only narrative feature thus far.
Okay. So we'll see. I mean, this being his next directorial effort, that's a feature effort.
Yeah.
I'm excited. I'm excited to see what it is. I hope it does well so we get more of them.
I agree. Absolutely agree. They don't need to be Netflix exclusives or anything like that. This will hopefully stop the red notices of the world from ever getting made.
Yeah. Exactly. The last thing I'll say, and then we'll move on to the top 5.
Okay.
The thing that I read last week that screamed to me, movies are so back. Michael Bay in talks to return for Transformers.
Which is like the complete antithesis to what we've just been celebrating.
Happy birthday to me. But when were the last time movies this good, Brendan? 2007 and 2009 when Michael Bay was making Transformers.
Well, we are in a new day and age where Michael Bay has become a more interesting filmmaker, just given how unique Ambulance was. Like if he can channel that type of visceral energy into a Transformers film once again, okay, yeah, I'm genuinely curious about that.
I mean, all jokes aside, I am a defender of the Bayformers for the most part. I think they're a lot of fun.
Hey,
silly, goofy, absurd.
Hey, completely separate your objective and subjective view on those movies. I think we can find ways to combine the two when something like Dark of the Moon comes out and is actually a successful movie. That's actually a very good movie, if you ask me, for at least what it's doing, what the kind of movie that it is.
Dark of the Moon is my version of other people's and like other people, how they feel about Revenge of the Sith. But like, that's a legit good Star Wars movie. That's how I feel about Dark of the Moon. Like, that's a good, maybe underrated Transformers movie.
It gets the comedy right. I think the timing is better because I felt like they actually had a script this time.
Yeah, it's good stuff. And I like that movie. As silly as the first one is, I think it's pretty good too. I enjoy
the first one's kind of like a Cartoon Network special in a way. It certainly captures the feel of the original Transformers as a property. So I respect that for it. But yeah, Dark of the Moon, I think, is a very successful action film. It's a very good summer blockbuster for what it's going for.
Jim Blonsky going God mode for that film too.
Absolutely,
remarkable.
The whole Sam Witwicky going to interviews, that whole collage set to Sweet Emotion by Aerosmith. It's
so good.
It's effective. It's funny stuff.
I really like it a lot. And he recently dropped the project that he was working on. Like, he just left the project
to do
which
this.
I think is incredible timing given the rumors that he might be in talks to do a new Transformers movie for Paramount. I'm just saying that is very interesting timing, and all of this went down on my birthday, so happy birthday to me. And I can't wait.
Absolutely.
Can't wait. 2027 new Transformers movie. That's what I'm hoping to see.
Will it be a reboot? Will it still be in continuity to his films, the Bayformers?
That's a good question. I hope that it's a little bit of a retcon, and that it is that they forego the 5th movie. I'm okay if you keep the 4th one.
Okay.
Because there are some good things there that I admire, at least as it relates to the Autobots and stuff. Like, I think it's a good Transformery movie for maybe the human characters. That side of it, maybe not so much.
You don't like the Romeo and Juliet laws?
Just Michael Bay.
I thought we all
he's
loved
something
those.
else.
I thought that was the thing that brought the world
He's something
together.
else. But obviously, it's not going to carry on the Mark Wahlberg cast. So they're going to.
Yeah.
It's going to be some sort of reboot / retcon, I would guess.
Mm-hmm.
But who knows?
I think probably in the same way that Age of Extinction was when that first came out, as sort of a new phase, but still set within the continuity of what came before it. So it was a sequel, reboot, hybrid of sorts. I kind of wonder if that's what this will be once again.
You know, what they could do as well is that, you know, you had Rise of the Beast, which kind of sits as a pseudo sequel to Bumblebee, but it's only one movie. So if you're going to retcon anything, it could also be that.
Yeah.
Where you just make a sequel to Bumblebee, but you let Bay kind of manifest his Transformers, but within a new timeline, within this new version.
Yeah. And I feel like, in a way, the Bayformers films, those were kind of the nucleus of this franchise, where movies like Bumblebee and Rise of the Beast were kind of like the side quests in a way. Maybe they might maintain that. I don't know. Be curious. He might just reboot it completely and start over from scratch. It might just be called Transformers, for all I know.
It could be that. It very well could be that. Who knows? Either way, I'm excited.
He might just remake the first Transformers that he originally did and just do a shot-for-shot remake.
20 years later, I'm going to remake my own movie.
Yeah, just cast it with different people.
Unbelievable. I'd be down. I'm going to be down either way. We'll see what happens, but I'm down.
Yeah.
All right, Brennan, let's talk about coffee. Everyone loves coffee.
Adult medicine, we need it.
A lot of us drink it. We need it.
It makes us function, makes us operate. It's our robot fuel.
I noted at the beginning of the episode that I just had some dental work done, and I went to the dentist, and in addition to the pulling of the teeth, they do all the usual cleaning stuff that they do.
Yeah.
And my dentist, who is new, she's a new dentist for me. My old dentist is now gone. So got a new dentist, and she's like, "Do you drink a lot of coffee?" And I'm like, "Boy, do I have a story to tell you."
I get that too.
No idea.
I get that too. There's some wear and tear there that's pretty obviously coffee related.
Yeah. And look, that's not going away anytime soon. I did tell her that. I was like, I'll come back here for some more cleanings and you guys can do your thing, because the coffee drinking is not going away.
That's not stopping. Yeah.
That's not stopping.
Hey, at least they're aware of it now.
Yes. Need some great coffee. So if you're going to drink coffee, Coffee Cult, you need to go and check them out. They have coffees from all over the world. Africa, Central America, South America. They get coffee from all around the world. It is some of the best coffee you will ever have in your life. In fact, it really is the best coffee, because they source only specialty grade coffee, the top 2% coffees in the world. And they roast them in a very specific way that cultivates the best flavors. So you really don't need to add a bunch of stuff to these coffees. You can drink them black as is.
Oh, yeah.
And you're going to taste some phenomenal notes in these coffees.
It's encouraged to drink them black.
Exactly. I highly encourage you to just drink these coffees as you don't need to add a bunch of calories to these coffees. They're fantastic on their own. And so go to coffeecult.com. Again, that's coffee with the K, cult with the K, coffeecult.com. Use our code ISF25. Again, that code is ISF25 for 15% off. But here's the other thing. Here's the other thing this week. You can also get 50% off any apparel that they have on their store as well. Which you can also find at coffeecult.com. So in addition to getting your coffee at 15% off with our code ISF25, you can also get any apparel. They got hoodies, shirts, hats. You can check it all out there. And that is 50% off. That is an automatic discount. You don't need a promo code for it. Just add it to your cart. It'll automatically discount that. And that is 50% off for back to school. So go and check them out. Coffeecult.com, and we thank them for their support. All right, Brennan, let's talk about audiobooks.
Oh, they're
I love
great. They're great.
audiobooks.
We love listening to these great works. And apparently, from what I understand from certain studies, listening to books in this way actually does improve grammar and communication skills.
Now, I would highly encourage it. I love
Yeah.
a great audiobook, and Audible has some of the best around. And what's amazing about Audible is that they have about 6 trillion titles to choose from. I think that's a factual number.
It is. Yeah, that's not a hyperbole.
And they have everything. You want fantasy, they got it. You want sci-fi, they got it. You want books on sports, they got it. You want audiobooks on business, you can get that as well. They
Hey, yeah.
have everything.
What I've been reading a lot lately, books on famous musicians, autobiographies on famous musicians. My collection right now includes the likes of Miles Davis, Herbie Hancock, Scott Weiland, to name a few. And they're all available on Audible.
Yes, you got to go check them out. They right now have been going through The Lord of the Rings. I'm trying to still get through The Lord of the Rings.
It's a chore, isn't it?
It is a bit of a chore.
That's not Audible's fault. It's the book's
No,
fault.
it's not. No, it's not Audible's fault. It's just the book and
Yeah.
Tolkien's writing. But it's fun. Andy Serkis, who does the narration there, he does a great job, and it's really fun to
Yeah.
hear him do all the voices, including his Gollum voice. But man, Tolkien's writing is a lot. Is a lot.
Yeah, you might be better off just reading The Hobbit.
Maybe I should have. But I also got Dune. I kind of started Dune. I wanted to get through Dune because I want to read Messiah. And then I also downloaded what is that Ryan Gosling film that he has coming out?
Project Hail Mary.
Yes, that I downloaded that one as well. I have not started it, but I downloaded it.
From
I'm excited to
Andy
check it out.
Weir, the same writer
Yes.
as The
Yeah, yeah,
Martian.
yeah.
So, yep.
So I'm curious to give that one a go. So go to audibletrial.com/InSessionFilm, audibletrial.com/InSessionFilm. The link will be in the description. Of course, give that a click and you'll be able to get a free audiobook and a 30-day free trial. Again, that's audibletrial.com/InSessionFilm. Go check them out. And we
Can't
thank
go wrong.
Audible for their support. All right, let's go ahead and move on to our top 5. So we are once again inspired by the new film Together for this, talking about power couples within horror movies.
Right.
This was your idea, Brendan. So
Yeah.
why don't you break it down? What's the criteria here? What are we talking about?
Well, criteria can be whatever we want. You might have a slightly different criteria for me, but I wanted to keep it somewhat in keeping to something like Together, which is playing now in theaters for most people, which does feature a romantic couple front and center in a horror movie. So I wanted to focus specifically on that because many horror movies do have some type of romance, whether it be front and center or at least featured. They could be the main characters, they could be side characters, supporting characters, whatever. And some of them are actually very powerful presences because of that togetherness, right? And I thought this was a great way to focus on that. If we were to maybe be a bit broad with the definition of horror, I think that allows us to stretch our wings a little bit more. Some of the films we talk about are maybe not necessarily literal horror films, but they do maybe have a horrific or gothic sensibility that they kind of feel in keeping with maybe, let's say, some Halloween vibes, if that makes sense.
Sure.
I think if we go that route, there are a lot that we can certainly talk about in varying horror movies, varying gothic Halloween-like movies that I think are worth celebrating. And in many cases that I'm sure we'll talk about, they are kind of the emotional glue holding some of these movies together, especially when they do work. And I think it's worth celebrating, especially we never really had a topic like this before. It's a very different one.
It is
for
new
us.
for us.
Yeah. And sometimes going in a new direction to challenge ourselves a little bit makes for a fun one. And that was the whole point here.
I will say this was pretty challenging for me, primarily because my history with horror is a bit scatterbrained. I've talked about this a lot on the show. It's not a genre that I have a rich history with for a long time. I avoided it altogether. until we started doing InSession Film about a dozen years ago now. And that's when I really started to come around on horror. So there's one, a lot that I haven't seen, and just two, I don't have the rich history with it. So this is such a specific topic that I'm not fully confident on a lot of movies that I could pick here. I certainly have a lot of blind spots as well. And it made for a somewhat challenging experience. I don't know if this is the richest top 5 that I have, although I have a top 5 I'm very happy with, don't get me wrong. But I do wonder if maybe this was more limiting than other exercises where I didn't feel as if I was as handcuffed, if that makes sense.
That makes sense. I think we might have some crossover here in that regard. I may have more of an extensive relationship to these movies than you do, but even so, I think there are a handful of couples that we can talk about that are just obvious ones that we need to address, just given how they're featured in their respective movies, and given the romanticism, if anything, of them, the tension of them, much like Alison Brie and Dave Franco in the movie together. They're married in real life, so whether you like that movie or not, there's a palpable chemistry there. And in many instances of these horror movies, there's a palpable chemistry between certain characters, and that's the whole point.
We want to focus on here.
Yeah.
Which is why ultimately I still love the 5 that I have here.
Sure.
I just don't know how everyone else is going to react to this, I guess, is maybe my reservation, but we'll see. We'll see how it goes.
That would be so funny if we have the same top 5 just in a different order. Because I'm looking at.
Doubt it.
No
way.
How many crossovers do you think we'll have?
2.
2. I think we might
2.
have. I think we might have 3.
Okay. All right. We'll see how this goes.
Yeah.
All right. Let's get it going then. What do you have at number 5?
Number 5, I have Dewey Riley and Gale Weathers from the Scream franchise.
Okay. Yeah, great honorable mentions.
Oh, an honorable mention for you. Okay.
Yeah, love this.
I'm citing the Scream franchise, but if I were to pick an individual Scream movie that I think heightens the romantic tension between Dewey and Gale, played by David Arquette and Courtney Cox, respectively, I'd probably give it to Scream 2, the second film from 1997. Because by that point, their tension has been fully established from the first film, and that collective chase they have in the the video library between the two of them that leads to yet another Dewey fake out. There actually is some romantic tension there between the two of them that you feel bad for certain characters if they were to lose someone that they care about. In many ways, as much as Sidney Prescott is the thematic and emotional glue that holds that franchise together, the tension and the relationship between Gale and Dewey is kind of the things that's the thing that makes the franchise more relatable and more inviting for the audience, I feel like. And I just love their banter together. And coincidentally, much like the movie Together that's playing in theaters now, this is a relationship that did become real off screen for at least a few moments, but it did become real. So there was definitely some palpable chemistry for a reason, right? So this is really my pick for maybe being the most the most sexual tension that you get from a horror movie. I think they're the best at representing that, which is why I at least wanted to highlight that aspect of a power couple in a horror movie. I think the sexual tension between the two of them, especially in Scream 2, is very much there, and that's what I wanted to highlight.
Yeah, this was a great honorable mention. I love those two characters, love the dynamic, love how their flirtation is fueled by these witty and often sarcastic exchanges, which is really great. But of course, as the horror ramps up, their relationship tightens in this incredible way that I really enjoy. So yeah, I very much considered it high honorable mention for me. Love that pick.
All right.
All right. Now my number 5, I'm going with Oscar and Ellie from Let the Right One In.
Okay. Honorable mention for me, probably somewhere in my top 10.
Alfredson film. This is a really great film. I love Let Me In as well. in a lot of ways you could consider this a combo pick. I went with Oscar and Ellie since they were
the first.
That was the first film,
Yeah.
but I love both of them. And I think what's really great about this dynamic is that you have the youthful loneliness of Oscar. You have Ellie seeking companionship, which is, of course, complex given the whole vampirism of it all.
Sure.
And how that complexity seeks itself as the film goes, I think is really incredible. When you're talking about the trust and vulnerability of their bond, the genuine connection they do make, how subtle it is at times. I love the symbolism of it. Sometimes it's just little taps. They create their own little language, but it really doesn't manifest until really the third act of the film, where it becomes this fascinating pseudo romantic relationship. And how that comes about and Oscar and Ellie, I think is really great. Like seeing her try to protect him, seeing him protect her. You get both of those moments in the film, and it's just fantastic. And I love the subtle tenderness of the film. It's really great.
Yeah. Almost had it in my top 5. It's definitely somewhere in my top 10 as a great honorable mention, and I love the youthfulness of it. There's another film I have that I'll get to in a moment that's in my top 5 that maybe has some similar ideas as far as the youthfulness of that relationship and how it really funnels, or how it functions as this allegory of a child protecting another friend of theirs simply because they're different, right? And I have another example that I personally latch onto, but this is another great example of that. And I'm with you as far as the remake, Let Me In, from director Matt Reeves, in a way is just as good. There's an artfulness to that one that we love from Matt Reeves, and it might actually still be my favorite Matt Reeves film in some
Very
ways.
good.
Between that and
Very
Dawn
good.
of the Planet of the Apes are probably my top 2 from him. But I think both movies work as complementary pieces of the same story. It is very much the same story, but they visualize things in a different way with a different energy that I feel like you can like both for different reasons, which is what a good
agree.
remake should be.
I agree that youthful despondency in both of those films, I think, is really great. The idea that they're both seeking companionship, obviously in very different ways, but how that comes together and crystallizes, I think, is really fantastic.
I agree.
Really good stuff.
Absolutely.
All right, so let the right one in. That is my number 5. What do you got at number 4?
My number 4, I'm going to go to the year 2018. I'm going with Red Miller and Mandy Bloom from Mandy, from director Panos Cosmatos. Is that your number 2? That's your number 2.
So this
All
is
right,
one
so
of our crossovers. Yeah.
I figured this was going to be one of our crossovers. Absolutely. So let's talk about it collectively. I'll start things off and you can rebuttal.
Okay.
What I love about this relationship, of course, Red Miller and Mandy Bloom, played by Nicolas Cage and Andrea Riseborough, respectively. Much of this romance and much of this relationship is actually not shown on screen. The narrative propulsion is that this woman was taken away from Red Miller, and it becomes a tale of horrific vengeance. But the ghostly presence of Mandy and how that fuels his vengeance, there's something about Nicolas Cage's performance that brings such a tragic nature to this otherwise otherworldly and almost alien-like story. It really is quite powerful, just given the sense of grief at play here. And I think it's one of the best horror movies I've seen that demonstrates not just a power couple in the traditional way like we're talking about, but the grieving process of losing a romantic partner.
Yeah.
I think this movie gets that so well, and ironically so, because like I said, the character of Mandy Bloom isn't really that much of a character. She's almost more of a cipher, more of an idea. We obviously do see her and we get an understanding of this relationship, but much of that is through flashback, and much of that is through hypnotic surrealism, right? I love the way the movie plays with that in a very interesting way, but still allows you to feel it. It's a movie to feel. And if we're talking about power couples and how they're meant to elicit some sort of feeling, this is a great example of that. So that's why I love it, and curious to hear why you also love it.
Well, I mean, for a lot of the same reasons, but I do love that the film spends quite a significant amount of time on that surrealism in the first half before things go off the rails, so to speak, and become unhinged in a great Nicolas Cage kind of way, because we do spend a lot of these ethereal, gentle, soulful moments in the first half of the film that you might struggle with at times on a first watch, because you're trying to figure out what the hell is going on.
Yeah.
And it is incredibly surreal, but it does formulate that bond between those two characters that is really great. So as brief as the relationship is, at least to the audience, it does a great job of signifying the relationship they have and like the almost profound intimacy that they share. Despite being two very different people, obviously Mandy is the more intellectual, gentle one. Red is rugged and grounded, but together they do make this great couple. And when you get to that midway point and we see what happens to Mandy, you get this incredible visceral reaction from Red that is just absolutely fantastic. And it's honestly one of Cage's best moments performatively.
The bathroom scene, I guess we can call that.
Before that, even
before that,
when the actual act is going down,
gotcha.
He is tied there as if he's tied to a cross.
Oh, and yep. Gotcha.
He has to witness this unfold because that's another element of it. It happens right in front of him, and he cannot do anything about it. And good Lord, Cage in that moment is astounding. It is staggering how good he is. So then as things go from there, including the bathroom moment, he's unhinged in a great Cage kind of way. I love it.
Does Panos Cosmatos does he have another film coming out anytime soon?
I'm not sure.
He better. I'm looking at his filmography. It looks like he has 2 films in pre-production, but doesn't look like there's any update on them. So that's unfortunate.
Yeah. Love that movie. And the last thing I'll say, and this is a little bit of a side tangent here, but I think one of its more poignant aspects, and this is unfortunate and tragic, but that was, I don't know if it was the last, but it was one of the very, very last scores we ever got from Johan Johansson.
Oh,
and it is unbelievable how good that score is. It is crazy phenomenal.
This is honestly, it's one of the best movies of the 2010s. I don't even know if I had it in my top 10 for 2018 when it first came out. This is one of those that gets better with time. This is one of those that I think is due for reevaluation.
It's really, really, really good stuff. I love it a lot. I'm definitely due as well. I'm due for a rewatch. But yeah, I love it. That is my number 2 pick. Yeah.
That's your number 2. So it was my number 4. So I guess we can go to your number 4 if we want to keep that momentum going.
Yeah, we can go to my number 4.
Yeah.
My number 4. All right. So I'm going to the year 2013. Adam and Eve from Only Lovers Left Alive.
Ooh, that's a great inspired pick. Very inspired pick.
Yeah, the Jim Jarmusch film. Man, I love these characters a lot. And
it's a funny movie.
Just a phenomenal movie. It is very funny, but I love its little horror moments as well.
There's a line in this movie I still sometimes randomly quote, and that's when Tom Hiddleston goes, "You drank Ian." But just the way he says it, like, oh, okay, you drank him. Yeah. You drank Ian.
love this movie. And it's great because there's obviously a lot to this film about time and mortality and the weight of that on these characters, in particular Adam, who is reclusive and melancholic, borderline suicidal. And even though these characters have been married for ages, despite that, they've also had different partners along the way as well. And I believe, like, I haven't seen the film since it first came out. This is another one that is very much due for a rewatch.
Mm-hmm.
But we see them separate at the beginning, somewhat living their lives, but there's a shared artistry amongst the two of them, whether it be about music or literature or history. That's something that brings them together.
Yeah.
And as well as this need for blood, but they go about it in a very specific way given modern culture, which I think is a nice little twist on the whole vampiric lore thing. And it makes for a great dynamic between those two characters, especially once they come together and Eve sees that he is maybe a little bit suicidal, very despondent. And it makes for some great conversation in that film that at times is poignant, at other times, because it's Jim Jarmusch, it's often funny in this subtle, stoic little way. But it's, that's what I love about Jim Jarmusch.
Between that film and The Dead Don't Die, I kind of like when he works with high concept kind of movies sometimes, or genre benders.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. And it works very well with his deadpan style of humor and approach to storytelling.
Yeah.
It's great. It certainly makes for a different take on those kinds of movies.
Absolutely.
Whether it be zombies in the latter or vampires here with Only Lovers Left Alive.
Yeah. Very much a fresh voice in that regard.
Yeah, I agree. So my number 4 here.
All right. So I guess we'll go to my number 3 then. My number 3 I alluded to when you talked about Oscar and Eli from Let the Right One In. I highlighted that there was one pick in my top 5 that similarly captures the innocence of this type of romantic kinship. A very different phase of innocence, mind you. These characters are still older than Oscar and Eli, but my number 3, I'm going with Edward and Kim from Edward Scissorhands, the Tim Burton film from 1990. Obviously played by Johnny Depp and Winona Ryder, respectively. And I think this relationship works for a lot of the same reasons you already talked about with Oscar and Eli and Let the Right One in that it really is this representation of defending someone by understanding they're beautiful because of their differences, what makes them different, what makes them unique. The weirdness of that individual is something to be valued. Tim Burton has kind of cited this movie as weirdly autobiographical for him, given how he always felt kind of like an Edward Scissorhands-like person. He basically made a movie about that, and that these individuals do ultimately not just need love, but they know how to show love. And I love how this relationship between Edward and Kim is a representation of that. It's not really a romance in the traditional sense. I wouldn't like, there's not sexual tension between these two characters. If anything, it's almost more sibling like, I guess. But like, I kind of love that the recognition of how different Edward is and how Kim learns to embrace that. It makes it her movie by the end, quite literally, given the whole flashback and framing device of it. And that arc and how she reveals that at the end, I think is beautiful. As on the nose and sappy as it might be for some, I love this movie. It's one of the first movies I can recall ever making me cry at a young age, so I'm always going to have a soft spot for it. But I think this relationship and how earnest it is and how innocent that it is, that's the thing I always gravitate towards. And I think it'll always hold up. I don't think this movie will ever fail in that regard. It's really quite great.
I agree. This is probably number 6 if we were extending this out to a top 10. I deeply love this as well for those same reasons. And I just love how that innocence and that you're talking about, how impactful that is despite how short-lived the romance and the relationship is as well.
That's a good point, because this only takes place over the course of a few days, I think. And yet these performances have to make you believe that a young girl like Kim could actually like a man with scissor hands, or at least feel empathy for him. And the movie pulls that off.
Absolutely. And it's not a romance that's going to blossom for weeks and months and years afterwards, but it clearly has a significant impact on her, as it did for Edward as well.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you do love to see them remove those societal restraints and just look at the person for who they are. Again, it's maybe a little simple in that regard, but there's still a truth to it. And I love that Burton is willing to embrace that truth in the ways that he does.
Simple and earnest is all we ask for sometimes. Sometimes it's really difficult to pull off a true earnestness from something that is so simple. But this one is definitely a success at that.
Absolutely. I love that pick. Like I said, my number 6 there.
All right.
My number 3, it's a little bit of that in the sense that it might be toying with the boundary of our criteria here a little bit, but
Sure.
I still think it works. I'm going with Ellen Ripley and Corporal Hicks from Aliens.
It's my number 2.
Okay, there you go.
Perfect transition, too. I can follow you up with it.
Yeah, because it's my number 3 here. I love this film. I think it is one of the best films about motherhood, but as far as that relationship goes, I do love the subtle slow burn of it all, how it organically develops amid the chaos without ever undermining the central ethos of what Aliens is trying to be as a sequel with its plot and where the characters are and what they got to do. Like the film is still mainly about that, but one of its through lines is this relationship and how that mutual respect fosters this nonverbal intimacy as the film goes, and this mutual idea of being this protector that I think is really great. Like how that organically comes about, I think is just fantastic. And when you got Goat Cameron telling this story, he does it in a way that is, of course, incredibly diverting, very entertaining, but he makes that emotion come alive in this film. And I love it. I absolutely love how that all crystallizes in the end.
Yeah. Yeah. I was going to talk about the exact same things as to why I have this at my number 2, primarily because we often talk about how successful this movie is as a tale of motherhood. We often cite Ellen Ripley and Newt as the prime examples of that, and rightfully so. It makes sense, but so much of this also has to include the character of Hicks, played by Michael Biehn. In a way, this is a movie about a makeshift family. It does kind of have that Hirokazu Koreda thing in a way.
It does, yeah.
Yeah, and it's very successful at that. In many ways, this movie is, as much as The Terminator from 1984 is James Cameron's true debut, Aliens, in many ways, is the first true James Cameron movie. I think that's a big difference because the elements of, like Avatar: The Way of Water, The Abyss, or even Titanic, those are all in this movie in some way. The romanticism between Hicks and Ellen Ripley and that tension that forms between them. I mean, James Cameron is playing with a certain trope that he would then heighten further in Titanic. So everything that he would hone in on in the aftermath of his career kind of started here. And I think that's really fascinating to watch his whole career unfold, given what this movie does. And it's also why it's probably my favorite James Cameron movie, because I think in many ways it is kind of the perfect buffet of all of his sensibilities working together. But yeah, the romanticism between these two characters, I think, is very strong. And we need to also include him as far as why this movie works so well as a great tale of not just motherhood, but kind of parenthood in general. I think it really is all of those pieces coming together.
I agree. I love it. I think it really works in this context. And it's maybe a bit underrated because you're right. It's a lot of the Ripley Newt of it all, but that dynamic is equally important.
I agree. I agree.
Yeah,
all right. So that was my number 2. And your number 2, you already talked about being Red Miller and Mandy Bloom from Mandy. So we've already had 2 crossovers. You guessed that we were going to have 2 crossovers.
I did.
I guessed 3. So the only way that I'm right is if we have the same number 1, and I don't think we do. So
So I might be right here.
You
I
might be
called it.
right here. I'll give you credit for this one. My number one is from the year 1986. I'm going with Seth Brundle and Veronica Quaife from David Cronenberg's The Fly.
Okay, yeah, we will not share the same number one.
This was always going to be my number one. The moment I decided this topic for this top five, this was my number one at my first thought. Primarily because I think this actually is one of the best romance films of the 1980s. As much as it is a body horror film, as gross as it is, I often go back to this movie and I find myself always wanting to rewatch it because I think it's also a great romance film. I think the chemistry between Seth and Veronica, played by Jeff Goldblum and Gina Davis respectively, is quite great. But it's also a tragic romantic. It's a romantic tragedy. That's the best way to put it. It almost has a Shakespearean-like quality to it. And given the body horror aspect and the transformation of Seth Brundle into this fly, it certainly works in conjunction with many of David Cronenberg's other films about the transformation of the human body in a very cancerous like way. That's very much a Cronenberg thing. This makes for a movie, with The Fly specifically, about a relationship where one has to care for their significant other who is essentially dying of cancer. That is the emotional pull of this movie, and that's the metaphor at play. And I find that really effective. I actually think this is kind of an Oscar caliber romance film. I think it's really powerful stuff. And the fact that it exists in a movie as grotesque as The Fly is kind of a magic trick. I find that astounding, absolutely astounding, which is why it's one of my all-time favorite body horror films. And I think it's also one of my favorite romance films simultaneously, which is a weird thing to say. I think both Gina Davis and Jeff Goldblum are giving performances that at the time in the mid-'80s should have garnered Oscar consideration. I think they are both that good in this movie. And it's just interesting that it falls into a movie like this. So I think it's really great stuff.
Yeah, see, this is a victim, or where I am a victim of my own ignorance, because
You've seen this movie though, right?
I've seen the film once.
Okay.
And I loved it. I really loved the film a lot, but I've only seen it the one time, and it was years ago at this point.
Okay.
I very much considered it for this list, but at the same time, I didn't know if I could speak to it confidently, because I just don't have, again, the history with it as I do some of these other films we've just talked about.
So basically that means you're not going to give it a revisit anytime soon, at the risk of coming back to me saying, yep, I made a mistake.
No, I honestly wanted to try to give it another go this weekend, but there was no time.
No, I mean after this episode airs. You might hold off on that, so that way after this episode is published, you can't say that you made a mistake by not including it.
I mean, I would love to revisit this film. In fact, I've been on a Cronenberg kick, it feels like, recently.
Well, especially after The Shrouds came out.
Well, that, and I have caught up with a couple more of his films, one of them including his 99 film that we're preparing for as that retrospective comes
Existence?
around.
Existence? How do you pronounce that title?
Is it Existence? I'm not even sure. Existence?
I don't know.
I've seen the film recently, and I still can't remember how.
That makes it fascinating.
But it's I really dug that film a lot. But that is to say, I have been on a Cronenberg kick since The Shrouds came out, and I would love to give this one another go. Absolutely. I wish I had the time to give it another go before this exercise, but either way, I'm definitely due for it, because I did love it. I loved it the first time around for all those reasons you stated. I don't really have anything to add. I just didn't know how confidently I could speak to it, because I've only seen it that one time years ago.
Yeah.
But I do really like it a lot.
I think it's his best film, which I know might be a bit of a basic thing to say, but I do genuinely think it's his best work.
Though. Sometimes the most obvious one is the right call.
Yeah, and in this case, I think that is.
And for me, that's also why I have this at my number one, because it's the film I've seen the most times out of all the films that I considered for this.
Okay. I know where you're going with this.
Yeah. So my number one very obviously is The Nightmare Before Christmas.
Yep, there it is. I was looking at my list of
Yeah.
possible honorable mentions and the rest that could round this out. It's like, yeah, of course it's going to be The Nightmare Before Christmas.
Yeah. Jack Skellington and Sally. And I wanted to use this opportunity to get back on my bullshit, if you'll indulge me here for a moment.
Get on your
Because
soapbox, man.
I love this film, and I have always argued that this is a Halloween movie. And so I have a series of questions here I want to ask you, Brendan, that kind of gets to the point of why I think that is the case.
Okay.
Okay. What is Jack the Pumpkin King of again? What is he the king of?
Halloween,
He is
right?
he of Halloween
Yeah.
Town. You're right.
Yeah.
Halloween Town. He's the Pumpkin King
Of Halloween.
of Halloween Town, which is the town for which holiday?
Last I checked, it was St. Patty's Day, right?
You're right. Halloween. That's right. He is the Pumpkin King of Halloween Town, which is the holiday for Halloween. Who would have guessed that? But of course, as we see at the beginning of that film, he's feeling disillusioned and bored. So when he discovers Christmas Town, he becomes enamored with it. But Sally helps him to do what?
Send Valentine's Day cards.
No, that's right. Rediscover his purpose as the king, the Pumpkin King of Halloween Town.
Thank you for indulging my snarkiness.
Meaning that his identity is tied to what? Yes, you're
Eating a
right,
Thanksgiving
Brendan.
turkey.
Halloween, which makes Christmas what? That's correct. Circumstantial evidence. You can replace Christmas with any holiday, and the movie stays the same. So him
I
becoming,
don't know if that's true, but okay.
you can. He could have become enamored with St. Patty's Day. Maybe he wanted to go for a drink or two. Halloween
But
Town,
people don't
there's
have
no
the same
alcohol.
people don't have the same relationship with those holidays as they do Christmas.
Okay, which is why I understand why they chose. I get it. I
Yeah.
get why they chose Christmas. I do. But thematically, narratively, if he can become enamored with anything. It doesn't even have to be another holiday. He could have become enamored with beaches. I just want to get away from Halloween Town.
He could have become enamored with the Michigan Wolverines.
Exactly.
Sports
Maybe
culture.
he became.
He got online and started participating in the discourse.
He was going to way too many Detroit Red Wings games. And Sally was like, look, you can't become a Red Wings fan. You need to come back and be the Pumpkin King of Halloween Town. It doesn't matter. He could have become obsessed with anything.
Just imagine if your wife said that to you.
But his identity is Halloween. He is the Pumpkin King of Halloween. So she helps him rediscover that purpose. And that's why it is a Halloween movie.
Okay.
And it's also why, to the broader point of this conversation,
I was going to say, let's circle back to power couples.
them as a relationship, as a couple, because she is vital to that evolution. So it gave me an opportunity to again get on my bullshit about this, and also it's actually kind of important. Like, she's very important to that argument. So like, he never has that epiphany without her. So they're a great couple.
I will give you the major argument here in how this relationship works as a great relationship because of what she is able to bring to it. Like the realization that she's able to bring to Jack, which happens a lot in real life couples, right? The way that couples complete each other, the way that one becomes the other's yang, and that togetherness becomes sort of a recognition of why you're not complete without the other, and how they bring
Especially
out the
when you
best
start
version of
hanging
you.
out in other towns you don't belong to. You don't belong to.
That's right. Do not go to Flint, Michigan, or something like that.
Hey, Flint's a good town. They became screwed over political stuff, but Flint's
That's fair.
a fine little town.
That's fair.
But yeah, I mean, sometimes, just you don't belong to certain things, and you need to go home. And there's nothing wrong with going home and rediscovering that home is a good thing. That's what Lady Bird is all about. That home is a good thing.
That's
I don't
a power
have to
couple
go to
for
Christmas
you.
time. Lady Bird is a live action remake of The Nightmare Before Christmas. That's basically
That's a
what I'm
wild
saying.
take. I love that take. That's insane.
Yeah, that's pretty much what it is. You don't have to go to Christmas Town.
At
You don't have to go to New York.
At least a movie like The Nightmare Before Christmas is potentially making a point like that, but it doesn't shy away from the importance of Christmas. It doesn't say it's a bad thing or anything like that.
No.
Yeah.
And
It's not an anti-Christmas movie.
And if anything, that just makes my point hit even harder, I think, because it's not an anti-Christmas movie. It's not that Christmas is bad. It's just that Jack doesn't belong there. His identity is Halloween. He belongs in Halloween Town. Halloween Town. He's the Pumpkin King of that place. It's Halloween. So
I love your passion. I love your
that's all I'm
passion.
saying. He doesn't need to go to Valentine's Day Town either, or St. Patty's Day Town, or Memorial Day Town. He didn't need to go to any of those towns. Just Halloween. That's it.
Yeah.
That's all.
The joys of Christmas are so apparent in that movie that I still feel comfortable watching it on Christmas.
For sure. They could have gotten blistering drunk, and I'd be like, the joys of St. Patty's Day also really great. The film treats that with sincerity.
We do
which
not
is why it
condone
would've worked no
binge
matter
drinking
what.
on this podcast.
Just on St. Patty's Day.
Certainly the Irish in me would appreciate that.
Yeah. So, whatever. You want to make hearts for Valentine's Day. Whatever.
I'm just going to eat a bunch of turkey and
could've-
stuffing and watch
It could
football.
have been Thanksgiving. How do I keep forgetting about Thanksgiving? Maybe
Best holiday.
Because that's what I would have gotten enamored by.
Oh,
was
yeah.
Thanksgiving. And I would have needed a reminder that you can't eat turkey and mashed potatoes and green beans every single day of your life. You have to come back to Halloween Town because that's where you belong.
And you can only stomach so many politically charged conversations with your family before it's like, okay, we have to pump the brakes here.
Exactly. That's when Sally's like, get out of there. You're having too much political discourse. You need to come home to Halloween Town, which is what she does. She makes Jack remember that he's not a political debater. That's not who he is.
Anyway, all of
He's
that
a
to say
scary
your
man.
number one is The Nightmare Before
Yeah.
Christmas.
So anyway, The Nightmare Before Christmas. Yeah, that's my number one here. Sally and Jack, they're great.
They
They
are
need
great.
each other, or
Great
at least
honorable
he
mention.
needs her.
Great honorable mention for me.
So, all right, what else you got? Any honorable mentions?
I did want to highlight a really fun pick that I almost put in my top 5 just for shits and giggles. The Dolls, Chucky and Tiffany from Bride of Chucky, which I think is actually a very fun and underrated movie. I also have Adam and Barbara from Beetlejuice, Alex and David from An American Werewolf in London, Alicia and the Amphibian Man from The Shape of Water, Lee and Evelyn from A Quiet Place. A few others I have here, but I'll let you continue the honorable mentions. I just want to highlight 2 couples here from very iconic horror films that some people may consider for this list, and that's Rosemary and Guy from Rosemary's Baby, and then Jack and Wendy from The Shining. The reason why I didn't include them is because they're shitty couples.
They are terrible couples.
Yeah. Powerful couples
Yeah.
in powerful movies,
Uh-huh.
not good couples. So,
No.
I mean, what makes them great is that they are horrible couples. That's what makes those movies work.
Mhm. Yeah.
Not really part of this criteria. I at least wanted
No.
to highlight that movies I really like, movies that many film fans would like, right? But maybe not the best picks for this particular conversation, but I at least wanted to acknowledge that.
Yeah, no, that's very fair. I don't really have too many other honorable mentions outside of the ones that you named, which I also have listed here. But I do want to add a few more. I think that first Conjuring is pretty great. The rest of that franchise, I don't need.
I
But-
like the second one. I do like the second one quite a
Yeah,
bit.
you're a fan of the second one a lot more
Yeah.
than I am. I don't love
Yeah.
that second one, but I think that first Conjuring is quite great. So that's a good honorable mention for me as well. Similarly, I think that first Quiet Place movie is pretty good.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it a lot, so that's a good honorable mention for me here. And then the other one that you didn't name that I have listed here, but comes with a bit of a question mark, because admittedly, this is a little bit of, I don't think this qualifies, but it sort of does, is the original King Kong movie. Or Peter Jackson's King Kong. I guess kind of qualifies, but...
Yeah, I'd probably say more so Peter Jackson's King Kong, just given the romanticism between those two characters, right? But it's not really a horror movie. That's kind of the thing. But maybe the original King Kong from the 1930s, I think more so does.
That's the one I was thinking about specifically. That's why I didn't really think about Peter Jackson's version, but...
Yeah, but the couple aspect of Kong and Darrow, I believe the character's name is, I feel like that's more emphasized in Peter Jackson's version. It's more of a focal point. But that first King Kong, the original King Kong from the 30s, certainly more the quote-unquote horror film of the bunch.
Yeah, but it's still there. Like, I think like that's the reason he does what he does, Kong.
Yeah.
It has everything to do with that relationship. So
Sure.
You know, that's why I was like, okay.
It's just,
I don't know.
Yeah, I feel like it's more reciprocated from Anne's part in Peter Jackson's film.
I agree.
Yeah. So like the romance itself feels more romantic in that movie. That's what he's ultimately going for.
But is less of a horror film.
It's not a horror film by comparison. Yeah.
Okay, good stuff. If you agree or disagree with anything we had to say, you can leave a comment below if you're watching on YouTube, if you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Reach out to us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Blue Sky. You can always email me your disagreement about The Nightmare Before Christmas. You can email us InSessionFilm@gmail.com. All that I ask when you disagree with me about The Nightmare Before Christmas is that you try to understand my perspective. Just don't yell at me like it's sports.
Of course they're not. What are you talking about? Of course they're not
ask.
going to do that. It's too much to ask.
I know.
Yeah, the weapons discourse is evidence of that. It's too much to ask.
Yes. As we noted at the beginning of all of this, we have 2 reviews this week. One is Together. The other is Weapons. And when you put them together, you have Weapons and Together.
You have a weaponized discourse is what you have.
Weaponized, exactly. Anyway, stupid jokes aside. We're going to have reviews of both of those. I also want to note a big thank you to our latest patron, Joshua Hughes, which signed up last week over at Patreon. A big thanks to Joshua for signing up. We hope you enjoy all of the bonus content that we have to offer there. We had new bonus content this last week where Brendan and I talked a little James Bond and The Social Network 2 and other news stuff that we weren't able to get to on last week's main show. So we've had some VIP bonus content the last couple of weeks, and we'll have some more coming down the pipeline here soon. So if you want to become a VIP, patreon.com/InSessionFilm, Apple Podcast subscriptions, or here on YouTube, if you're watching us here, you can become a member of the channel. That gets you access to all of that bonus content as well. With that said, of course, be sure to subscribe to the show, leave a comment or a review. You can leave us reviews on Apple. You can leave comments on Spotify. You can leave comments here on YouTube, of course. We would love to hear from you. So,
absolutely.
Anything else, Brendan, before we get out of here? Am I missing anything?
Yeah, be sure to look out for our review of Together coming out this week. As far as I know, JD, you might not be on that conversation.
Yes.
So
I think I'm going, I probably will not be there for that. I think the great Shari Chawla is going to be there for that one in lieu of me. So I am very excited to get him back on the show.
Absolutely.
I look forward to hearing you guys talk about that one. But yes, our weapons review should already be out by the time this episode goes live. So you can go ahead and check that out. New women in session this week as well. Also want to note, we're going to have a lot more content at InSessionFilm.com as we are ramping up Chasing the Gold award stuff as well. So lots of great stuff on the website. Be sure to go and check all of that out as well.
Lots of good stuff.
All that said, thanks for listening, everybody. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time on the InSession Film Podcast.